So in relation to what we've been saying in the last few talks regarding the mind, wild animal, the similes, what would the gratification of sensuality be? Can you have internal resistance without sensuality?
Yes.
So then it's not quite the beginning of sensuality. It's the proximate cause more often than not. When people want to avoid pain, they turn to sensuality.
Yeah.
But just within sensuality, where is its origin? Where is that gratification? What is the gratification? You still haven't answered that. Say gratification, delight. So, the zeal, the delight towards
the pleasure.
Towards the pleasure, yeah. Towards the prospect of pleasure.
But even that, it's like the thing that makes it pleasant is the delight, not the kind of idea of pleasure.
Exactly. The delight is already its gratification. That's the point.
Are you asking in terms of the simile, in terms of the animal?
In terms of the whole thing, everything. The mind, you, whatever we're saying. Mind can see only you, pressures you towards things it wants, through you. You're its puppet, basically. You know, the 5 strings, they're called strings because they control you like a puppet. Like a puppeteer controls a doll. So, and yes, you know, you're acting towards pleasure because you want to avoid pain, you want to avoid pressure, you want to avoid resistance. But all of that's kind of secondary to the origin of that gratification, that delight. So where is that delight? But I'm just asking, so from the point of view of, if you imagine or recollect a sensual desire of any kind, sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, there is pressure, there is craving. Even before you engage with the object, the gratification is there through the presence of delight. Where does that delight come from?
From the mind.
Which one?
Which mind?
Your mind or the animal mind?
Animal.
The animal's mind.
The animal. That's what it's like a untamed in kind of.
So the joy towards sensuality comes from the animal. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Anybody else?
That's what I would have said. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. But I want to check. It does. That's the whole point. And that's why you could be telling yourself all you want. That sensuality offers little satisfaction and all this. When the mind wants it, you see no escape from that. You are under there. That's why the only way to begin that sort of... to begin liberating yourself from it is through sense restraint first. Simply to not give in towards what citta wants you to do. Wants to use you as a puppet, basically. To experience things through you. Because it can only see you. And that's... so for as long as you don't... Basically, if you would not have discerned the mind for what it is, you can't even see the origin of gratification. So your efforts towards sensuality would not be uprooting it. It would not be addressing the problem for what it is, which is no. You need to convey to the mind that it's actually better to not want it for itself, not for you. And because it is factually better to not want it, it is a burning ember even for the wild animal. It can then get, it can get that message if you're able to communicate to it. And that's then when you go beyond sensuality, i.e. when your own animal is not pressuring you towards it anymore, not when you chose to do so or something. And that's why the Buddha would say in the suttas, like even he would, in the beginning when he would be like, I saw the extent how unsatisfactory sensuality is, how little joy it provides, how more peril, yet still my mind would not leap towards that. He would still not want it. And then
That's
I thought, renunciation, yeah. It's like, oh, why is that the case? Oh, because it hasn't so he hasn't communicated the danger of it to the mind well enough. And when he did, then the mind started preferring as well, not going into sensuality. But people often think, well, normally, obviously, what else can they think? Because you don't start by seeing the mind, you don't start by discerning that space in between as a phenomenon real as such, peripherally known. Then you just think, okay, I have this desire, but at the same time I don't want it. I see how bad it is, but I can't help it. But then I do it, then I can't stop doing it. Then I stop doing it, then I start doing it again, and it's just this constant sort of turmoil and internal conflict of, well, seemingly wanting it and not wanting it at the same time. But you could well not be wanting it through and through as far as you are concerned. But that's not where the power comes from. It comes from the fact that the wild animal that is still invisible to you wants it. And you don't even see the animal. So how can you then talk to it? How can you then get the timing right to convey the message and so on? So how do you then convey to your mind that the renunciation is good for it?
Well, you have to start by kind of renouncing physically, taking it out of the...
100%. Well, you won't even see your mind if you don't.
See,
Because
like,
I think we said that. We must have said that in the previous talks. Like, you don't see your mind by somehow directing your attention to the neither here nor there in between. You see it by withdrawing the threshold of your perception from the sense objects,
not distracting.
i.e. through sense restraint. Through not fueling desire and lust for those objects anymore, you get to then see the internal counterparts and so on. Not because you chose to.
Mm-hmm.
So, say somebody is obviously seeing the mind, which means they would have been established in virtue. They're not approaching it through some sort of sensation watching in the area of their heart, which obviously won't be the mind. So, how would they then start conveying the message that renunciation is what the mind also actually wants, even when it goes towards sensuality?
So we went through the list last talk of
Which one?
of physical, verbal, and then sense restraint, and then
Sense restraint, okay.
thoughts, the images,
But you also now, like in this example of specifically when it comes to sensuality, you want to present it with certain contexts, because the mind needs to see it for itself.
Yeah.
So that,
The dog needs to get the message, not just emulate your behavior.
so
Which, of course, without emulating your behavior, there'll be no message. But what's the message?
correct contemplation. So, like, the mind sees you, so you can choose what you choose to, like, how you choose to attend to things. As in, so the way you attend to things will kind of, you
So
can
the
do
way you
contemplation.
attend, yeah, but does it also matter what you attend?
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, the way you attend, they kind of go together in this particular instance, because obviously you can't do like the correct contemplation of the danger of sensuality without having a certain way of attending to that danger as well.
Yeah. Well, that's what the suttas would say as well. Like, whatever one frequently thinks and ponders, that's what his mind starts to incline towards. So you realize, oh yeah, so the dog hates renunciation, doesn't want to hear about it, but obviously I'm the one trained it. I'm the one responsible for training it, so I'll just keep presenting this context to it. But that's now that part of how you attend to it. So you could just go into like mindless body contemplation as the traditional way of body parts would think it's done. But no, you gotta actually present it with the factual danger that will be felt.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be like a living contemplation, not just going through the mental motions of images of body parts and stuff. No, it's like, no, there is an actual danger in this. You need to feel the danger. You need to recognize the bait. Oh, there is poison in that thing that you want to eat right there. Oh, thank you, that was so close. If you didn't tell me, I would have consumed it. That's the only way for the mind to get the message across. No amount of just, teacher, student, government curriculum information passed. Yes, this sutta says that, and that sutta says this, and there is 32 parts, and there's 16 ways of going about it, and there you go, you have finished your contemplation of the Asubha. It's like, no, the mind has to feel that. And then you keep doing that for as long as the mind still inclines towards it. Until actually you realize, and you would know, because the mind, well, if the mind still inclines towards it, or if not, that becomes your feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
So it's like,
point.
Look, I can stop now, because it's not actually trying to go to that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't want it anymore. It genuinely wants to have nothing to do with it. And then you protect it in that state. You don't get careless and start presenting it. Because see, each time you choose to look, smell, taste, touch, hear, unsuitable, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, it's unsuitable for the mind. As I said before, you can well handle it. It doesn't do anything to me. But is that animal fully, completely, utterly, 100% trained without any underlying tendencies left in it? Or it's not, and you know the answer already. So if it's not, these things are unsuitable for it. Although you're fine, nobody denies that. You're the greatest, the most restrained person, you can hold everything in the world. But the mind that's not developed can't. So in the same sense, you will be presenting it with the right context of danger and how little satisfaction and so on. Well, through simply choosing to look, smell, taste, touch, unsuitable smell, sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, you're now giving it the opposite context.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Now you're giving it the context of, oh, look, this good thing again that I always wanted.
It's like
So
basically you've always been training it for something.
yes,
in a way.
exactly. There is no neutral. So it's either suitable or unsuitable, beneficial or unbeneficial. So it's to recognize that, because sometimes people is like, and that's exactly how people would like go against the precepts or sense restraint. Oh, it's not a problem for me, and it's factually true. Probably more often than not, it's like, oh, it's not a problem for me. But it's like, oh yeah, but the mind will get the wrong message. If I look at these things, taste these things, and when I say unsuitable sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, it means done through that intention of distraction, sensuality, you know what type they are. And that will automatically be sending a message to the mind. Even if you say, oh, I'll do it quietly so you won't see it. It is you doing it.
You wouldn't be doing it if it weren't with the...
Well, exactly. Once you don't do it, then you realize, oh, the mind, it was basically already, there was an underlying pressure from the mind. Come on, just this once.
So if you can, you're aware of the mind leaning in a certain direction, wants to, the eye, it wants to look somewhere, wants to tend something, and you can feel that it wants to do that. And so you start noticing the ugly aspects of the situation while it's trying to look at the beautiful.
Well, no, you have to see the animal first in order to present the context.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if you see it leaning in a specific direction, that's what I mean.
Right. So then when you're
so
thinking of the Asubha context, you're not thinking it to cancel your own thoughts. You're thinking it just to broaden the context for the animal.
I don't know if it's kind of obvious where it's leaning. You get the flavor of where it's leaning, that direction. Yeah. And then you bring up whatever other ugly contexts
Sure,
there are.
sure. If
Whatever
it's done
might be
for the mind,
dangerous.
that's being seen peripherally, yeah.
And where's that pressure
Not if it's done just as a response to, oh, it's beautiful, I must think the opposite. I'm just clarifying that whoever listens to this does not jump to conclusion of, oh, so I must think the opposite every time something presents itself.
No. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's not a response. Because the mind is leaning in direction.
You could say it is a form of response. You are responding.
I'm not trying to deny that.
Exactly. But is your response rooted in trying to deny the whole thing because it's unpleasant? Or is your response, yes, there is this beautiful, that's what you want, okay, I understand, and this is what comes with it. And then you present everything else on top of that thing, not instead.
Yeah.
Together. And then it's like, oh, okay.
It's like that sutta where, anyway, that I translated as seeing the other side. So the bigger picture,
yes.
the other half of the picture. Yeah. So it's not about denying the one side and then just focusing on the ugly.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fine. It's just that obviously it can sound the same to somebody who is not even seeing the mind. And that's really the point. See, like when you're trying to deny things, you're aiming that denial at the mind, at the whole pressure, at everything. So there's no communication. It's just denial of everything. So, and that's how people do a subha. That's how people do loving kindness. I just want to replace the whole thing.
Well, it's going to be done in the wrong time.
Well, exactly. Well, the whole thing is already wrong. Yeah. So the mind is still getting the message of aversion through it. So now it's going to be even more averse. So next time you're going to have even more hate. Or you keep presenting a subha, trying to just blindly not teach the mind to not want it, but just blindly cancel it. He'll learn to love that, and he'll get attracted to a subha now, because you're presenting it on top of its own existing undiminished delight and desire. He's going to start seeing beautiful in that, as it happens so many times in the suttas. And that's already the difference between are you just justifying your attempts and managing the arisen discomforts, or are you really trying to uproot them? Because you realize, this is uncomfortable, this pressure, but it's like, okay, so I could just try and deny the whole thing and distract myself from it basically in the process of doing so I don't have to deal with it. Or I could really address the root cause, which is the animal delighting in things it shouldn't, and I'm being pressured on account of it. And I'm being controlled and pushed and so on, like a puppet. And for that, it takes a bit more nuance than just think the opposite thoughts. It's like, no, you have to discern. Well, first you have to stop trying to get rid of the pressure, because then you won't discern the pressure. You can't discern the extent of the pressure. Because by discerning the extent of the pressure, you discern the extent of the mind. So now, while the pressure is there, you feed the right context to it. You present it. And even if he doesn't want it, you keep them there while the pressure is there. That's the training. That's the enduring on the right level, as he keeps saying. That's the right level. Pressure cannot be acted out, shouldn't be acted out of. This is the whole picture that you're ignoring while you're pressuring me. Same. Imagine a little spoiled brat cries and screams to get what he wants, and it's causing a scene publicly, and you're feeling the eyes of everybody on you because of what your unruly kid is doing. Oh, you quickly give me, so it stops. But then you just convey the message to that kid. Okay, next time I want something, I'll do exactly the same thing, and I'll get what I want. But if you don't give in to that pressure, it's going to feel uncomfortable. But then the kid will get the right message. Okay, this does not work. And then it will stop trying. That's the point. You can't reason with it because it doesn't think like that. It doesn't think on that level. But you could indicate the benefits and the non-benefits of that behavior. And then it can feel that for itself. So you know that the Talaputta, the poet, the verses that he was writing to his mind, you could read that poetically, like, he's like a poet talking to his own mind, but you could also understand it phenomenologically, like he was actually addressing his mind. the phenomenon of his mind that he very much clearly seen and understood. And he was saying like, oh, before when he was a householder, he was romanticizing about, committing his life to the practice and living in the mossy forests with deers and streams in the mountains where no people go, and practice in seclusion and complete his training and so on. But now when he is living in the forests with moss and streams and mountains and where deer comes and so on and no people go, the mind wants to go back to the sensual life. So I was like, no, now you're going to stay here. You brought me here, now I'm going to keep you here. Until you get used to this and start to like it and want it. Whatever it takes, how long it takes, doesn't matter. And then he did. And then he became an arahant. So because the delight comes from the animal, that's why you need to teach you the danger of it. You're not, I already know the danger, I don't need to think about it. It's not about you. It's about getting that message through to the animal. Like, until it actually sees, oh, yes. And then the escape becomes obvious. What would be the escape?
Not wanting.
For both of you, exactly. Complete absence of any trace of delight coming from the animal, and we are both freed.
So if like the animal's winding itself, wants to wind itself up, let's say with thoughts of complaining about whatever, just wants to delight in the thoughts about complaining about others or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that it's discerned, and you're okay, well, don't do that. Just don't go in that direction. Well, we won't be going there. You don't let it out, but it wants to.
Yeah,
and then so it calms down because you've put that boundary for it.
Yeah.
And it calms down, and then you note whatever it is after some period of time. See?
Is this better, factually better than Yeah. And that's where the recognition would come. See, that's like why so many times it's said in the suttas, but obviously it's so easily overread. Like, virtue results in samadhi. Nothing else results in samadhi. No concentrating and focusing could result in composing the wild animal. Makes no difference to it. Well, in fact, actually makes a negative difference to it, because you're focusing more on the objects of your senses.
No.
But it's the virtue that calms down the animal. The virtue calms down the mind. Established in virtue leads to samadhi. The whole relay chariots we did before. So exactly, not acting out of the unwholesome pressures calms the mind. Until the recognition, discernment would then occur as a result of it. Oh, see, this is factually better, isn't it? And then the mind would see it. Oh, yes, it is.
So
and then you keep repeating that for as long as there are tendencies.
Comes up again
Yeah.
and again. It's like, remember this.
So the delight is the gratification. The danger. What's the danger? What's the most immediate danger? The Sutta talk about it in different ways, depending obviously I think on the audience. Sometimes the danger is that, well, if you want sensuality you have to go and plow fields and endure elements and work hard and endure lots of discomfort. But what's the more immediate, or what's the most immediate danger of giving in sensuality?
Suffering or
Well, yeah, that's obviously true, but
also delight. But from the point of view of like that, the liability to just being under that pressure, because delight is already pressuring.
Well, yeah, the delight is a pressuring, but you can handle the pressure. Most people can to some extent. But what's the actual, the danger, the chopping block, the death, all the similes that Buddha gave when it came to sensuality? It's a bit more than just the pressure. Pressure is the gateway for the communication and everything else. Contact is the gateway. But what is that danger that you want to convey to the mind? That it can see for itself then and stop doing it. So if the delight comes from the animal, does the danger come from the animal as well?
The completely wild, untamed thing that you're attached to, but you have no control over, that is your puppet
But
master.
more specifically, how does that manifest? How does that wild, untamed nature would manifest? So that you realize, oh, that is actually the peril, the heart of it. How do you scare that child to its core so it never does that ever again?
The extent of its capacity to delight is the extent of its capacity to bite itself, to bite you.
Yeah. It's so, as I said before, the immediate danger is liability. You being liable to that animal just to turn against you at any given second. But what's in it for the animal? So that's the danger that's apparent to you. But you want also animal to see that as unbeneficial for itself.
Whether it's, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, whatever kind of suffering is there is because of craving.
Yes.
Because of and that's it. It's like when there's sensual craving, like
Well, yes,
same
and I see what you're
capacity.
getting at. The craving's bad, fundamentally. You're better off without it. But the gratification, the danger and the escape are specifically need to be seen in the specific contexts of sensuality, of anything you depend on. So these are the specific messages that need to be conveyed to the mind. Yes, craving is bad. It would be much like everybody would be better off without it. But the mind doesn't understand that. So you show it the delight that it comes from it, that is gratuitous, and it will stop delighted if you show it the danger of its own delight. So the danger for you, obviously, your interest there is to tame the animal so it doesn't bite your face off. But what's in it for the animal? Why is it beneficial for the animal to not just bite your face off?
its wildness is factually unpleasant. That's what I'm trying to say. It's factually it's
well, it's
suffering.
factually pleasant, but animal doesn't see the facts because that's the point. Like if you're wild, you don't see that as a problem. You need to scare it to see there's a problem.
So
there is
it's
no
slightly indirect.
Everything is indirect. There is no
like less immediate than that. That you're talking about.
There's no end. I mean, this is how I would describe it. They're like in that direction. It's just there's no hope for it.
Again, like imagine a crazed drug addict.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have I know it's unpleasant. I don't care. I will still kill you.
Yeah.
Because you're in my way.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you then, a person who is not reasonable, an animal that follows no reason or facts, how do you scare it to stop doing it?
So let's take a drug addict.
Yeah.
So he wants the drug and he's desperately wants it. He's in a craving mode.
That's my point. Whenever there is a delight, there is no reason to that extent. So you're presenting the right context, but fundamentally, in order to get through to the danger becomes apparent, it needs to sink in through the animal as well, that it's dangerous. So I'm asking, for you it's going to be, this thing at any given second can turn against me. That is the most immediate danger. You're presenting the context of like disagreeability, disgust in things that he wants, so he loses the desire. But fundamentally the escape comes from really recognizing the danger of even the slightest giving into that, the slightest wanting of the animal.
So that's what I'm asking. Like, is it like you're asking about the danger not of giving into it? That's already like kind of secondary. The danger is not about like
The danger of delight.
It's the danger of delighting.
Yes.
That's
Yes. The danger, gratification, danger, and the escape. You recognize the gratification is the delight. What's the danger of it?
well.
The non-escape.
The It's more than that.
What you're describing, isn't it? Then you would be in the context of relative calm, in the sense that you're not acting out. Like you've already done you've already put the boundaries around.
That's all done.
So it's already in a state of relative.
Of course.
And so
and restraint, because you wouldn't be seeing the animal to begin with. So that's all covered. We don't need to rehash.
You're delighting in death. What is subject to what is death? Like to the extent of the delight, you're gonna die basically.
To the extent of delight.
That's the extent of death.
Of basically
what you're being subject to death.
Self-destruction.
Self-destruction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the message you want to convey to it, because that's the message you get from it. That's the point. When you recognize that the animal can attack you at any given time, you realize, like at any given time, regardless of the circumstances, this thing from the inside can just end me. And you realize, there is nothing in the world that can come in between that. And that's obviously would be the scariest feeling. If you experience it on account of virtue and sense restraint, which you probably will at some point, you can contain it. Because you realize, well, as long as I don't act out of this, it's contained. But you would have to see at least some extent of it. Or that is the danger. But it's not the danger because you're paired with the mind. It's not going to kill you just because you're paired with it. It will kill you because it's wild while you're paired with it. So you realize any trace of delight that I would tolerate or allow or not address is the direct link to this murderous thing that's inside of me. Like that there's nothing that can come in between. And then you realize, well, that in and of itself is the end of the animal.
Yeah.
So it will act for its own harm if it does that. So the animal delighting in sensuality means animal delighting in its own absolute demise. And it doesn't want to end. Why would it? But you need to make that connection for it. Delight means the demise, not, if I give in to this and then this and then this, then the danger of sensuality comes and becomes apparent. No. You're already acting out of the pressure of sensual delight. You're not seeing the animal, you're not addressing the delight that comes from the animal. The hidden murderer with that unpredictable intent, it's there because of that. You remove the delight, you're the best friends. Nothing can cause you to suffer ever again. How do you remove the light? Well, as we've just been describing. You keep presenting this context to it. And whenever you even recognize, so you have to keep a watchful eye on the space in between, quote unquote. So by putting back the choice, by making the choice clear to the animal, that's how you can stop doing it. By connecting, by associating, well, choice of delight means choice of this, and it's like, okay, thank you. So that's why it's like, initially it's like the scariest thing, but there is a liberation hiding in it. Because it's like, the murderous intimate friend, how the suttas say. It's like, but only because of the delight. Only because of the craving. Not because of its own faticity or something. So if I convey the message that intent, that craving and delight is killing itself as well, it will stop doing it and I'll be free as a result of it. Because that's what I was saying, I think, in that talk. The danger is that the mind turns against itself in that fit. of pressure or whatever. It's just obviously people would not even come near seeing that, because they were not withdrawn from sensuality and distractions sufficiently enough. So, as I said, you can be living with a wild dog, but you're constantly feeding it treats and constantly occupy its attention with activities. It won't turn and look at you in a sense of like, you're a stranger, what are you doing in my territory? I don't want you here. But if you start saying no to your distractions and stuff, that's the first thing is going to become apparent. That's what I said before, like people start panicking just because, they stop watching TV and listening to the news. They have panic attacks and whatnot. Because you've just been dependent on constant activity. And that's also like, deep down, everybody knows, like people that kind of, and I think most people depend on some sort of activities to some extent. And deep down they know that if they were to stop, things will get bad internally. So then they just go until they basically crash. There's no stopping. They can't stop, because if they stop, then this animal just comes and stands in front of them. And it's like, whoa. That's what Buddha meant when he said to Angulimala, well, I stopped. You're the one still moving. He stopped any activity on account of the pressure of the animal. It just does not exist anymore. The animal is tamed, so it's completely still. And interestingly enough, Angulimala understood it, despite all his other actions. Means he was probably very acutely aware of that pressure, and that he was acting out of that very thing. So delight comes from the animal, the danger comes from the animal. Removing the delight frees you from the danger, and that's basically the escape. When it stops delighting on its own accord, because it sees for itself that, oh yeah, that would have been to my own, like, they would have led to my own harm. That's even freedom is out of your hands, so to speak, because now the animal's tamed. You don't have to maintain it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to keep checking in. You just saw for itself that these things are always unbeneficial, like to the core. And just the inkling towards the delight would bring that whole weight of terror implied in it. So again, it's not like you need to free yourself from the delight, or you need to figure out the danger. The animal needs to see that. So in a way, teaching that, it's less intense, let's put it that way. Like if you think you need to figure it out yourself, like, and I'm not seeing it, you'll be just going in circles, filling up with doubt and so on, and still not really arriving at any conclusion, because there is no conclusion to arrive to. It doesn't pertain to you. But if you know, no, it's about not acting out by body, speech and mind, established in virtue, sense restraint, non-distraction, and then just maintaining these contexts, not too much, not too little, because that's what animal sees. It sees your little body language when you're not thinking about it. Well, now you're always thinking about it. So your little body language is the intentional messages to the animal, because you learn, oh, that's the level it reads. So that's why even these contemplations don't need to be necessarily unpleasant. It's only unpleasant if you've been giving into the delight, and then the danger of it been made visible. Well, then you feel the weight of that terror. But if you don't give into the delight, the implication is more than enough for you to see the full extent of it without needing to be terrorized in that sense. Because no amount of animal's delight can make you act. That's the whole point. You are the one choosing to do so. So even if you're all filled with confusion and doubt on some days, and you don't see the animal, and like this, and everything is now, nothing's clear. Well, what's clear is what not to do by body, speech and mind. So even if I'm not seeing the animal, I know it's close because I'm not giving in to its pressure. That's it.